Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The saber-toothed tiger. For the first time in history, scientists have mapped the DNA of the most legendary extinct cat ever. The iconic saber-toothed tiger is one step closer to being brought back from the dead. It was one of the top predators of the Ice Age, a deadly hunter with savage teeth. And the cat earned its name from its massive front teeth shaped like curved swords. After decoding their DNA, scientists were able to make some fantastic discoveries about their behavior. Dr. Michael Westbury said their genetic makeup shows that saber-toothed cats were incredibly skilled hunters. They likely had excellent vision in the daytime, and they also likely had a complex social system. Their genetic adaptations gave them strong bones and a powerful cardiovascular system. They even had an enhanced respiratory system that made them fast runners and great at long distances. Based on the initial findings, scientists think that, unlike most cats, saber-toothed tigers may have hunted in a pack. They could have run large groups of Ice Age beasts to exhaustion before pouncing on them. But what kinds of creatures did these big cats feast upon? They ate everything from deer to camels, Ice Age horses, and buffalo. But the most impressive feat is that scientists say they may have hunted mammoths and mastodons in ferocious packs. The new study was completed by scientists at the University of Copenhagen. The DNA was taken from the remains of a cat that died 47,000 years ago, discovered in Canada's Yukon Territory. Researchers can't quite bioengineer themselves a saber-toothed cat yet, but still, decoding their DNA was the first important step on the road to de-extinction. Number 9. The Lena horse. Scientists are planning to clone an extinct horse. But how does one go about cloning an extinct animal? Scientists say they are going to use blood extracted from a foal found preserved in the Siberian permafrost. Researchers recently discovered the foal of a Lena horse in Russia, so incredibly preserved from the ice that it still had blood in its body. Even after 42,000 years of being dead, the animal still had blood in its veins. Researchers who conducted the autopsy also found intact organs and tissues. The blood samples weren't taken from its veins with a syringe, though, as you might think. They were extracted from the horse's heart. Semyon Grigoyev from the Mammoth Museum in Yakutsk said the animal was only 2 weeks old when it likely drowned in some deep mud. Tragic for the creature, but a blessing in disguise for its whole race. After the foal was fully enveloped in the mud froze and it essentially became a horse popsicle. Scientists made it clear that they haven't 100% figured out how to make a clone from liquid blood, but they are hoping that the blood contains cells that can be grown in a laboratory. The work is being done by researchers who have already tried to do the same thing with woolly mammoth cells, but have failed over 20 times. Number 8. The T-Rex. In 2016, the Adam Smith Institute announced that they wholeheartedly believed that by 2050, humans will be bringing dinosaurs back to life. Director of the institute, Dr. Madsen Pyrie, wrote that dinosaurs will be recreated by breeding flightless birds until, once again, they become dinosaurs. They may not look like it, but chickens are really just tiny T-Rex relatives. The key, according to Madsen, in recreating the Tyrannosaurus rex is DNA isolation. Using isolation technology, scientists will be able to look deep inside the DNA of a chicken, just as an example. There, they can find the leftover genes from their ancient relatives. Then, birds can be born with characteristics from dinosaurs, like teeth, tails, and tiny arms. Isolating the DNA and continuously breeding birds with dinosaur features is what will create a 40-foot monster like those in Jurassic Park. But in the beginning, the dinosaurs won't be very big. Scientists think the first recreated T-Rex will be rather small, like a baby. It will be the size of a chicken, but with all the parts of a T-Rex. Imagine that by 2050, people are walking T-Rexes around the neighborhood on leashes instead of dogs. It seems like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, but there is a real scientific possibility that dinosaurs could become pets one day. Just remember that in the days before the Wright brothers took to the skies, scientists said they were crazy. And days before the first airplane lifted off, scientists were saying it would be centuries before humans achieved flight. Nothing seems possible until it happens. Number 7. The aurochs. Scientists are hoping that soon, the extinct aurochs will once more roam the European plains. The aurochs bull roamed all across Eurasia and North Africa for over 250,000 years. They were one of the first animals to be driven to extinction by greedy humans who coveted their horns. They were hunted mercilessly through the Middle Ages, and they finally went extinct in 1627. The very last of the aurochs was killed by a hunter in Poland. These creatures were enormous, standing up to 6 feet tall and weighing over 3,000 pounds. Their horns were massive too, measuring up to 4.5 feet across. They were so enchanting that Stone Age people painted them in caves across much of Europe and Africa. The Celts believed the aurochs were a personification of Cernunnos, god of the underworld. The Romans even used them in the arena to fight gladiators. Julius Caesar once wrote that the aurochs were slightly smaller than an elephant and shaped like a bull. Out of all the animals being brought back from extinction, the aurochs are the most likely. The Aurend project has been going on for over 10 years, although research into the subject was being conducted long before that. Scientists with the project already have 5 breeding herds in Germany specifically for trying to recreate an auroch through careful selection. And it's working, just slowly. The newest bulls are almost 6 feet tall and weigh about 2,000 pounds. Their horns are nearly as big as the horns of the ancient aurochs as well. The exact breed of the current closest specimen is a little tough to pin down, but most of the project's bovines are a mix of 5 different types of cattle. Number 6. The Carolina parakeet. From the East Coast all the way to Colorado, there was once a vibrant bird that flew peacefully in the skies. The bird was the Carolina parakeet, living in old-growth forests and natural swamps. It thrived in North America up until the arrival of European settlers. By 1918, the very last Carolina parakeet died. It had been kept at a zoo in Cincinnati when it went extinct. Europeans changed the environment so much that the parakeets lost their natural home and could no longer reproduce. The only evidence that these birds ever existed are taxidermy specimens in museums and images drawn in old natural history books. Scientific tests have revealed the DNA of the birds. Researchers from the University of Barcelona said that after mapping the DNA of 2 different Carolina parakeet specimens, they found them to be part of a diverse population. But that population crashed almost overnight. The consensus is that the bird was killed directly by human intervention, not by any kind of natural means. But apparently they could make a comeback. The same scientists at the University of Barcelona have discussed the possibility of bringing them back to life. They think the DNA from the Carolina parakeet can be used with the surviving sun parakeet to produce a living specimen. It's the same kind of thing that the scientists in Germany are doing with modern cattle to recreate the aurochs. Number 5. The dire wolf. When people started watching Game of Thrones, dire wolves became an obsession. What many people didn't know, though, is that the dire wolves from Game of Thrones aren't creatures out of fantasy. Dire wolves were real animals that roamed across North America. Over 4,000 dire wolf remains have already been recovered from the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles. They went extinct 13,000 years ago, which in the grand scheme of things is fairly recent. Some of the first people who lived in North America would have seen dire wolves with their own eyes. For the last few decades, scientists assumed the dire wolf was a kind of sister species to the modern gray wolf. But now, a group of 49 researchers are saying that's not the case. The researchers have analyzed the DNA of 5 fossilized remains and found that dire wolves were totally separate from modern wolves. They branched away from the family tree 6 million years ago. There's a bigger difference between dire wolves and gray wolves than between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. Unlike the latter species, dire wolves and modern wolves wouldn't be able to breed with one another because their DNA is so different. But on the other hand, humans and Neanderthals could, and did, breed with one another. Angela Perry from Durham University says this is the first time the ancient dire wolf has had its DNA properly analyzed. It's revealed a lot of interesting information about the creatures, while also moving scientists one step closer to bringing them back from the abyss of extinction. Would you like to see dire wolves again? Or which extinct animal would you like to see brought back to life? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Number 4. The elephant bird. The elephant bird of Madagascar stood 10 feet tall and weighed over half a ton. Up until French colonists arrived on the African island 300 years ago, it was the biggest bird alive. But the French wiped it out in a matter of years, and it's been gone for 3 centuries. However, scientists are now hoping to resurrect the monstrous bird by extracting DNA from ancient eggshells. Scientists recently came up with a new technique to extract DNA from eggshells. They can now take genetic material from scraps of eggs found in Australia and New Zealand and look deep inside its genetic structure. They've already collected eggshells from the elephant bird, from an extinct species of emu, and from an extinct species of moa. The oldest DNA they've analyzed dates back 19,000 years. Charlotte Oskam from Murdoch University called eggshells an untapped source of DNA, and researchers now believe it's just as useful for collecting DNA as bone or hair. Scientists haven't been able to use DNA to recreate these behemoth birds, but just like with other extinct animals, mapping the DNA is the first step to recreation. The elephant bird was the largest flightless bird that ever existed. It was the closest living thing to a dinosaur and evolved on Earth just 5 million years after the asteroid impact that made the dinosaurs go extinct. It may have even been around before the extinction event. Scientists don't know for sure. But the one thing for certain is that all it took to erase them from the planet were some French colonists. Number 3. The Mammoth 2027. Colossal, the famous bioresearch company based in Dallas, just announced that the woolly mammoth will return from extinction by 2027. The biotech company has been working for years to reincarnate the mammoth. Gene editing work started in 2021, and now scientists say they are less than 5 years away from making history. The company is so confident that they'll produce a living mammoth that they are already working out where to reintroduce them into the wild. They were thinking of Siberia initially, but that doesn't seem plausible at this moment. So they might end up reintroducing the mammoths in the Canadian Arctic, maybe even in Alaska. But how do they know they are so close to producing a mammoth? They have viable DNA samples and gene editing tools. Additionally, the mammoth's DNA is only 0.4% different from the Asian elephant. The only thing scientists need to do is tweak that minuscule 0.4% of DNA to produce a living specimen. The plan is to create an embryo, insert the embryo in an African elephant, then gestate. The African elephant will then give birth to a woolly mammoth. Afterward, the mammoth will be unleashed into the wild. And if the scientists are right in their estimate, it will be happening in 2027, which at this moment is less than 4 years away. Number 2. The Siberian bison. Russian scientists are hard at work trying to bring back an extinct species of bison. After recovering the incredibly well-preserved remains of a bison in the Siberian permafrost, they think it will be possible to clone the animal. The specimen is a whopping 8,000 years old, but because it was stuck in the ice, it remained almost 100% intact. It's still covered in fur, and it still has its eyeballs. Scientists were even able to remove the bison's brain from its head. Researchers are hoping to recover intact chromosomes from the bison, but that could be almost impossible. Paleontologist Love Gallen said finding chromosomes in a 9,000-year-old body is as likely as flipping a coin 1,000 times and getting heads every time. If finding chromosomes proves impossible, there is one other method they could try. Scientists can sequence the genome of the bison, then fill in the gaps with DNA from a living species. This sounds possible and scientific, but there's one problem. One of the scientists working with the research team in Russia is Hwang Suk. He was quietly exiled from the scientific community after publishing a paper in 2005 full of lies. Suk claimed that he cloned human embryos and extracted stem cells from them. But it turned out that he'd faked the data and also violated medical ethics. This guy is basically a villain, and he narrowly escaped jail time. So experts think that with him on the team, the chances of bringing the bison back are very slim. Number 1. The Arctic clone. In September 2022, the first cloned Arctic wolf turned 100 days old. But the story didn't circulate much in national news, even though it was a monumental achievement. The first cloned Arctic wolf may not have been the first cloned animal, That was Dolly the sheep in 1996. But its survival does prove the effectiveness of the technique. The research team at Sinogene Biotechnology in Beijing used skin cells from an Arctic wolf to create 137 embryos. They also needed to use eggs from a female dog to make things work. Then, 85 of the embryos were transferred into 7 different beagle surrogates. In July 2022, one of the surrogates gave birth to a real Arctic wolf. Just imagine a little beagle giving birth to a tiny wolf. It seems so unnatural, yet so fascinating at the same time. That's how far the cloning process has come. Unfortunately, the wolf was never socialized with other wolves. After spending the beginning of her life with her surrogate mother in the laboratory, she was moved back to the zoo with her biological wolf father. And there, she'll spend the rest of her life in peaceful captivity. This exact process is how creatures like the dire wolf, saber-toothed tiger, and woolly mammoth will return to the planet. Thanks for watching! What do you think about bringing animals back from extinction? What about dinosaurs? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and give this video a thumbs up for more. Come back soon. Bye!